good morning to all the participants. My name is Nuno Vicente, and together with my colleague Nathalie Naton, we are working on different aspects of national negotiations on agriculture from the European Commission. Here also we are particularly in the negotiations with FTA dedicated on the discussions on geographical indications within the IP chapter. So the topics that I would propose to hear for this brief presentation to discuss with you are GIs at international level and in the EU. Then why are GIs so important to the EU? Sometimes trade partners question themselves why there's so much focus. I will try to go a little bit through that. Then some just brief remarks on territoriality and genericness, and to end up with GIs and international agreements, how the EU looks at that. So just as an introductory remarks, geographical indications are one type of IP that uses geography in its names. There are other notions apart from geographical indications where for us, it's really the qualities of a product that are linked to a specific area. And the qualities of the product are determined by the characteristics of that area. I gave you an example, Lenticchia di Castelluccio di Norcia, which is a GI from Italy. And so there is this umbilical almost relation between territory and the products. In the case of other notions of geographical elements in IP, we have some generic names where, while originally the name cheddar or brie, for example, they are geographical locations, the product started to be so produced everywhere that this link between territory and qualities of the product disappeared over time. So for us, they have become, a European Union perspective, generic name. Then you have indications of provenance, as it's the case of Belgian chocolate. It simply says that the chocolate was produced in Belgium, comes from Belgium. There's no particular quality of the product which comes from the geographical origin. Then we have Irish coffee, which is what we entitle as fancy name. There's no link to the area of production. And another IP that we have in the EU, which is traditional specialities guaranteed, where the whole notion is about the method of production and not the geographical area of origin. So pizza napolitana, for example, originally it may have been from Napoli, but the link has disappeared over time. So the only thing that is protected at EU level is the method of production. It can be produced anywhere, it has to respect a certain method. So just from the beginning, to dispel sometimes some ideas that mix a little bit the different things. For the GIs is a very specific. Then what is the legal framework for GIs? WTO TRIPS agreement, certainly, articles 22, 24. And then we also have within the WIPO, more recently, the Geneva Act of the Lisbon Agreement. So this is a platform for us for protection at the members of the Geneva Act for protection at multilateral level, GIs. And the novelty in relation to TRIPS, the WTO Act, is that it foresees a multilateral register where once a name is there, registered, it's protected in every member of the Geneva Act. This is an avenue that the EU has also been exploring to secure protection of GIs at international level. And then within the EU, the way we translate those notions of GIs is via two sets of rules currently, two regulations, one that concerns agricultural products and foodstuffs, as well as wines and spirits. Regulation 2024, relatively recent. Before, of course, there were since the 1990s other regulations for foods. They have been reviewed over time. And then more recently, also recently, the craft and the industrial goods, which is a regulation of 2023. This is the legal basis. And within the EU, we have 27 member states. But in fact, we have one set of rules. So we have what we call exclusive EU systems, meaning the register is at EU level, and once it's protected at EU level, it's protected in all 27 member countries. With this slide, I just wanted to give you a notion of several names. So GIs are names that are protected. And here you see a variety that goes from alcoholic drinks, Porto or sherry, cheeses, Roquefort, queso manchego. Have also products such as saucisse, processed meats, Tiroler speck. And you have products that are even resins from Greece, the Mastira, Hio. So these are all products that not only they are famous, popular within the EU, but also at international level. This is also reflected in the fact that many of these names will come in lists, the FTAs that the EU negotiates with third country partners. So, an overview of some of these names. And then more specifically in the EU system, the way we translate the notion of GIs from TRIPS into our legislation is via three different types of concepts and two different types of logos. Again, I come to the notion that the GIs always must have a defined geographical area. And you see an example here, for example, an area of the mountains close to the Alps, but it's on the French part where the GI abondance comes from. So these areas do not tend to be very, very big, very large. They are sometimes very localized, reflect more or less homogeneous conditions from climate or other points of view. And then we have a specific product that those qualities of the product have a direct link with the territory where they come from. And that link must be demonstrated in what we call the product specifications. So this, for example, the product specifications for a protected designation of origin, the first you see up, and which applies to foods and wines. In the specifications, the link must be demonstrated in order for it to be recognized and accepted within the EU as a PDO or a protected designation of origin. Then we have the notion of protected geographical indication where there is still the link, but the link is less strong. For example, part of the raw materials used within the production of the EGI product may come from outside the area. So this is a slightly more flexible notion and not notion where all the raw materials and all the processing must take place within the area of production. So we have here a variation. The first logo and concept is stricter. The second is a bit more flexible, but both, there must be still some link. For example, in the case of PGI, very frequently is also the reputation of the product being associated with the area. Then for spirit drinks, we have a simple geographical indication. There is no this differentiation between PDO and PGIs for spirit drinks. So the protection via our EU legislation reflects the fact that GIs are a very valuable collective right, intellectual property right. The protection is for the name and not for the product itself. So what is protected is the use of a name commerce. That protection is, to our view, of the highest standard, the level of protection. So it's against any misuse, imitation, or even evocation, and any other practice liable to mislead the consumer. And then the right of use, which this is something sometimes our trade partners also have different practice. It's any operator that is within the geographical area in the specification, the production of the product is eligible to use the name. So usually we do not have this condition that there is a registered list of users and there is other conditions to be part of that registered list of users than the compliance with the product specification. As long as the producer is within the area and complies with the quality of the production of the product which is defined in the specifications, the producer is eligible. And then production is unlimited in time. The possibility of cancellation is only if there is no longer a production, if production is discontinued. So once it is protected, it's not protected for 5 years or for 10 years, it's permanently in time, except if either the member state or the group of producers decide to withdraw the application, let's say, protection. In this case, it can be cancelled. So there is a possibility of cancellation. Now, why they are important to you, the GIs? Part of it is because of the structure of our agri-food sector, notably the agricultural sector. If you see here the graph on the left, we have over 60% of all the farms in the European Union, which are less than 5 hectares. We have still a relevant percentage of the area. Farms are around 100 hectares. There are many small and medium-sized farmers and also small and medium-sized enterprises in the EU in the food sector. And these are not, again, big corporations. They are relatively small operators. And if you compare to other parts of the world, you can see in the table on the right that the EU, the average farm size is 17 hectares. When we compare to countries like USA with over 180 hectares, Australia over 4,000, New Zealand over 270, we are talking about a different scale of the agri-food sector, which allows for more industrialized, let's say, methods of production. If we look at Asia and Japan, I put there the examples: Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. We are again talking about a small average farm size. So the idea that producers get together and collectively they try to create a products which are then, they are able to produce them at a certain scale with quality that is defined, contributes, in our view, this system contributes to the well-being, the welfare of our agri-food sector proposed by these small and medium-sized operators. And when it was established in the EU in 1992, it was precisely as an instrument of rural development, geographical indication system. This reality, let's say, is very much present and very much linked to the importance that, for us, this system. So what is in the system for producers? First, the GI name, once protected, it reserves all the products respecting the specification. The production then is kept in the area of production. We have this notion of protecting local value at global level. This is also why we are attempting to protect these names at international level via free trade agreements, always in the sense of trying to protect the producers that are local region. The GI name is not reserved to one single producer, but can be used by all producers, respecting, I already mentioned that. Administrative protection by member states. So here we have a quite solid and robust system of enforcement rights in the EU, proactive system, whereby it's not only at the request of an interested party, there are proactive monitoring and surveillance of the market for detecting products that may not comply with the geographical indication protection. Then, of course, all these, what it allows for is the differentiation of the product in the market. And this hopefully leads to better price for producers. So the producers see that if they have a good quality product, that the standards of the production are complied with by producers, the objective is to get a better price than you would get for a standard product, a normal commodity product. And then the organization of farmers and producer groups also provides for the opportunity for a stronger position in the supply chain. There are always, in the EU and I believe in the countries that you represent, fights between farmers, industry, retail sector, and the supply chain. And these, in the EU, we have specific legislation that is now under development to address these issues. But this is also, the GI system is also a way to reinforce, let's say, the farmers and the small businesses' position in the supply chain. And this is important also politically. Then an example of a study that was prepared by the FAO and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in 2018, where it looked at different GIs in different parts of the world, Darjeeling tea in India, Kenya pepper in Cameroon, and also Colombia coffee, and then some in the EU. So it has found that in most cases, the premium between what is the standard product and the GI product varies between 20 and 50% more for the certified name-protected product. In terms of EU economic figures, the estimated total sales value of EU GIs is around 75 billion euro. This was a study that we did in 2017, which represents around close to 7% of the total of the EU drink sector. The total EU GI exports value to non-EU countries, so third countries, is around 17 billion euros. Again, it's already an old figure. We're trying to review it, but it shouldn't be too far from that, a bit above, hopefully. And this represents 15% of all EU food and drink exports, but it represents for wines and spirits 89% of all wines and spirits sold outside the European Union. So very, very significant sector. And in terms of sales destinations, around 58% of the sales of all geographical indications take place within the member state of origin of the product. So it's still, the biggest market is still the countries themselves, because the consumer is where the consumer recognizes the product the most. 20% in other EU member states, the other 26 member states, and then around 22% is exported to third countries. I think this is interesting, more or less, let's say close to between 1/4 and 1/5 all EU sales of GIs, they are sold outside the European Union. And that is also our interest in the FTA angle. For the consumers, what is in it? Guarantees on the origin, to know where it comes from, the consumer. The quality, so the system of product specifications ensures that consumer knows qualities of the product will be certain. And the authenticity. It protects product names from imitation. It reinforces consumer information on the unique character of these products and preserves centuries of tradition. In some cases, GIs go back to 16th, 17th century, some member states, regions. And then there is also the assurance that there is a robust control system. So the consumer also appreciates that behind what it sees on the labels, that there is a robust way to control that what the label says, it's what is in the product. And also it prevents the standardization of products and allows for the consumers to get a wider choice of products. This ensures quite a diversity within the same sector, be it cheeses, be it other type of products, quite a diversity. Currently, in terms of GIs protected in the EU, we have 3,417 EU GIs. We have 1,847 non-EU GIs protected by agreements. So many of these, they are wines from third countries. And we have 260 non-EU GIs which are registered via direct application, whereas 1,847 is via trade agreements. The 260 are applications that come one by one to you. And if you want to know more information about all these GIs, you have our database, official database, which is eAmbrosia, where all the products are there. And then you have GI View, which is a very useful tool, both to know which GIs are protected under which agreements, free trade agreements. So they have comprehensive information on all the third country GIs and EU GIs protected via agreements. But it also, for each GI, has information, not for all for the moment, it's a work in progress, but it has information on the control bodies that can be contacted in case cases are detected. So it's also a useful tool for third countries to look at. They need to contact the EU GI holders. So the last section of my presentation has to do international agreement. Article 24 of TRIPS allows members of WTO to engage in negotiations. You can see a series of negotiations that the EU on the right has concluded. So you can, hello? Yeah. So you can see there on the right several agreements that the EU in the last few years has concluded, from Vietnam to New Zealand and Mercosur, Japan. Some of them, of course, are still to come into force, like is the case of Mercosur. But in all these agreements, of course, we are making use of this possibility given in TRIPS, and the idea is to extend the scope of protection of a given GI through this manner. And of course, FTAs are one way to do that. In the past, we also have done that via what we call wines and spirits agreements, where GI protection was also foreseen, including with Australia or the United States. And then also the Lisbon system via the Geneva Act. So the TRIPS agreement, they provide for the definition of GIs. All products are covered, including the possibility for handicrafts and industrial products. Wines and spirits are covered at a higher level of protection. And our intention is always, of course, to bring in additional protection for the European Union GIs. So Article 22 for us is not sufficient to address the needs of our agri-food sector. We are always seeking for more, and the idea is that the level is as close as possible to what is experienced by our producers in the European Union. So what are these different levels that we bring in with the free trade agreements? Protection against any misuse, imitation, or evocation, and against the use of expression like style or type that you also see in Article 23. And I bring here some examples of situations where Article 22 would not protect, and Article 23, or the level of protection that we seek, then would protect our producers from these situations. For example, the cacciatori, clearly it mentions their production in Belgium, so it's an intra-EU issue. But cacciatori makes reference to a GI, an Italian GI. So clearly this product is not produced in Italy and is using, let's say, the Milan Cathedral as symbology. And this use of this kind of labeling would be prevented by a level of protection like the one that is lower in the slide. The same with prosciutto di Parma style that you see on the right. So the use of style is according to Article 22 possible, but is not according to Article 23 or above. And the example of feta there, it's also a brand that is actually French, so it's not Greek. And on the right above, it's an example of a South African wine that uses the imagery of a chateau in Bordeaux. So clearly an evocation of what is the UGI, and that would be prevented, that use would be prevented if the higher level of protection would be in force. So just for you to see, these are concrete cases in the market where if the level of protection would be ensured, they would be removed then from the market, or the producers would be requested to amend labeling in order to comply with the level of protection. So again, the EU aims at, in bilateral agreements, high level of protection of GIs beyond TRIPS. Reciprocal protection, of course, this is a two-way street. It's also for the GIs of the country, the partner country in the FTA. Coexistence of GIs with prior trademarks registered in good faith. So the idea is not protect the GI and then eliminate everything that exists in the market and was registered in good faith, is the principle of coexistence. And then the principle of administrative enforcement. robust system of monitoring of the market. We currently have 38 agreements in force or concluded. So the ones in green are the ones that are still not in force but are concluded, like Mercosur, Mexico, and Indonesia, that we have a representative here. And there are 13 negotiations ongoing: Malaysia, Australia, Thailand, Philippines, India, UAE, etc. And we have over 1,800 third country GIs currently protected, as we have seen in the previous graph. This is a map of all the negotiations that we have. The part a little bit more dark orangey, these are agreements in place, including with China, where we have a specific geographical indications agreement. And then we have a bit more the light, the darkish yellow, where the negotiations are concluded, but they are still not in force. So this covers a big part of the world. And that's what we have been trying to do in the last few years via these trade agreements, is securing these benefits for our producers. And my last slide, I just wanted to leave you with names of third countries that are protected in the EU, or they will most likely be protected. So you can see, for example, Napa Valley is a wine from the US. You have Café de Colombia from Colombia, but you have also products from Africa, Poivre de Peña from Cameroon, a pepper. And here you have some Thai GIs, which are under direct application, but they are also on the list of Thailand for protection in the EU via the trade agreement. You have one product from the Philippines, the manga Guimaras, which we're also under discussion for integrating into the lists. And then you also have some Vietnamese, Cam Vin, the orange, Phu Quoc, the sauce. And then some from Mercosur, Cordero Patagónico, which is a lamb, or bananas from Costa Rica. So what I wanted to leave you with the message is, this is not just the EU. We are also very happy to have the GIs from third countries protected in the EU, and in some of these cases, we have actually been contacted by the third countries and asked to remove products from the EU market because they are infringing on the protection of the GIs from the third countries. So this is really, for us, a good cooperation, a possibility of a good cooperation. And apart from that, we always cooperate, of course, with the third countries in the development of the system, which we consider very beneficial for the reasons that I explained to you before, for the agri-food sector and for the mostly small and medium-sized producers. Thank you.